If the words you spoke appeared on your skin, would you still be beautiful? These are the words from my dear mother. She taught my 5 younger siblings and I at a very young age that we must choose our words carefully, speak in a positive manner, and remain honest and good in our language and character. As the eldest, I took these words to heart and reiterated these same words to my sisters and brother, whom I cared for. Hello, my name is Jeannette Rankin, and I was born in 1880 and was raised in a small lumber town called Missoula in the territory of Montana. This was before Montana was even a state. I lived a simple, old-fashioned life with my mother, a school teacher, my father, a carpenter, 4 sisters, and 1 brother. As the eldest, I held the greatest responsibilities to help out our large family. My mother needed help with chores such as cleaning, cooking, sewing, mending clothes, and watching over my siblings. On the weekends, my father needed my help with the ranch, with farm chores, maintaining the farm ranch equipment, and to work as an apprentice for his carpentry business. Being the eldest child, it was my duty to do man's work with my overalls and a hammer. It was instilled in me to do, and all I did was to work hard. I noticed quickly my childhood experiences were very much different than those of my childhood friends. My parents really taught me the values of hard work, challenge, responsibility, courage, leadership, cooperation, and contribution. As a teenager, working hard, side by side with my father, is when I first realized that women work hard just as men, yet do not have a political voice. I learned in the news of Susan B. Anthony, a social reformer, leading a movement in women's suffrage in the United States. Susan quickly became someone that I grew to greatly admire as she became a role model in my life. By the time I graduated from high school, the University of Montana had recently been built right in my growing town of Missoula. I dreamed of going to faraway places, but my parents encouraged me to stay there in town. They needed me to help out with the raising of my brother and sisters. So I did just that. I went to the University of Montana and I received my Bachelor of Science degree in biology in 1902. Upon graduation, I didn't have a clear direction for the career path that was right for me. I tried my mother's career in the direction of teaching elementary children, but this didn't bring me any fulfillment. And I tried my sewing skills and dressmaking, but this did not pan out either. Though it was when I moved to Boston with my brother designing furniture that I became intrigued with the issues of poverty. I saw the terrible living conditions of the underprivileged in the city and was really compelled to become more involved in the social work. It was then that I decided to move to San Francisco, realizing there was a strong need here in the area for social work. Wanting to further my education, I did continue at the New York School of Philanthropy and received a degree in sociology. With this, I moved to Spokane, Washington, and accepted a job in social work, and then went on to attend the University of Washington. At this time in my life, I knew I had my deeply rooted values, an intense desire to make change, and a vision in revolutionizing this change. It was in 1910, at age 30, that I became very involved in the women's suffrage, my lifelong passion since I was a teenager. As I flew back and forth from the Atlantic to the Pacific, I helped to organize the New York Women's Suffrage Party and was a lobbyist for the National American Women's Suffrage Association, the NAWSA. The first great achievement was that same year, as Washington approved an amendment for the women the right to vote. This winning only fueled my deep-set values of challenge, leadership, and responsibility. The very next year, I pled my case for women's suffrage before the state of Montana. Just 3 years later, they too granted women the right to vote. I always had in my mind, men and women are like right and left hands. It doesn't make sense not to use both. We need to have the voice heard from all, from men and women alike. 2 years later, in 1916, I was the first woman to be elected into the United States Congress. And as I said, I may be the first woman in Congress, but I won't be the last. At this time, there were only 5 states that women were legally allowed to vote. This was a challenging and changing time for our country. In my years of Congress, it was my challenge and responsibility to pursue women's right to vote and world peace. At the beginning of 1917, we gathered together to vote regarding the declaration of World War I. I stated, I want to stand by my country, but I cannot vote for war. To my avail, my vote did not win. But the war did have a significant impact on the suffrage movement. Women had to replace men in the workplace in positions that normally did not hire women, such as steel mills and oil refineries. As I continued to fight from the inside as a member of the Congress, the women of the country began to boldly state their case. In January 1918, I introduced the suffrage amendment. By 1920, the 19th Amendment passed, giving women the legal right to vote in the United States. As the only woman in Congress, what I would want to be remembered by is the only woman to vote, for women to have the right to vote. This was the highlight of my life. While a member of Congress, there were other causes I supported. I fought for protection of women workers, mothers, and children, efforts to abolish prostitution camps, efforts to abolish prostitution near army camps, equal pay for women, birth control, and abolition of child labor. I also campaigned for legislation to promote maternal and child health care and regulate the hours and wages for women workers. Into the 1920s, I served as an officer in the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. I was very active and involved in the areas that I felt passionately that I could make change. It became my conviction and responsibility to take leadership and bring justice and transformation to this unfair society. I needed to be the voice for those that were not heard. As I traveled to different parts of America, I fell in love with the land of Georgia. In 1928, I purchased a farm there and also founded the Georgia Peace Society. I traveled between Washington and Georgia as I was the chief lobbyist and field organizer for the National Council for the Prevention of War. As I continued to make strong strides towards women's rights and world peace, I decided to run for a position again in the Congress in 1941. I was elected. This time, there were 9 women that were voted into the Congress. Though what was so frustrating to me is as women, we are half the people. We should be half the Congress. The same year, in December, I cast the only vote against the declaration of war on Japan. When I cast my vote, I stated, as a woman, I can't go to war, and I refuse to send anyone. This was a very unpopular vote, and many of my colleagues approached me and asked me to change my vote to make the vote unanimous. I stood my ground and did not change, knowing that I had to stand up for what I believed in. Afterwards, an angry mob chased me, and I ran and hid in a telephone booth to call the Congressional Police to protect me. Later, when those asked about the incident, I said, I'd go through much worse treatment if you know a certain thing is right and you cannot change it. In no way was I going to promote war and turn from my values. This was a difficult time. I had to stand for what was right when I was standing all alone. Fighting does not bring peace. In fact, you can no more win a war than you can win an earthquake. I learned at a young age, we must cooperate with one another, challenge ourselves to find solutions, and strive to do what is right. This world should strive for negotiation and diplomacy, not war and fighting. When my term ended, I spent much time traveling between my homes in Montana and Georgia, and also to India. I developed a deep interest in pacifist thinking and the teachings of Gandhi. In 1968, I led a brigade of 5,000 feminists, pacifists, radicals, and students to Washington, D.C. to demonstrate against the Vietnam War. The hope I have for world peace seems so far to attain. As I've stated, I've worked for suffrage for years and got it. I worked for peace for 55 years and haven't come close. In closing, the thoughts I want to leave with you are, first, find your passion and pursue it. I went from teaching to making clothes, furniture design, and social work. In the end, I continued searching until I found my passion in politics, leading women's rights, and promoting pacifism. Second, work hard to fulfill your dreams. Life will not always be easy, but stay true to your dreams. Develop strategies and teams and face your challenges. You will see things happen that you never thought were possible. Third, do not stray from your core values. I was not the most popular person, but I stayed true to my ideals. There will be times where you may stand alone, but you must stay strong in your values. Your standards will make you a stronger person and get you the changes that you want to make in this world. Thank you very much.